Here's a touchdown for this show. How about Bo Brock live from State Farm Stadium, the press box? There he is, all smiles today. We finally get a dub after leading at the half, Bo Brock. What was the mood, the environment there from Jonathan Gannon and company?
Fired up, electric. You could hear them hooting and hollering in the locker room, and then they were just bumping music to celebrate, as they should. BG, you've been on the solid end of these many times during the BA era, and it's a fun time when you win a football game, especially when you beat. How about them Cowboys? Always great to send them home with an L. I love that we're already showing Danielle's pick of the Cowboys fans leaving early. It's a great look. Love to see it. Jonathan Gannon, he was pretty subdued in the post game, though. I mean, he seemed like this is business as usual, and you kind of like that, right? You kind of like that the head coach is like, hey, if we follow through on the process, the results are going to come. And he's excited for his players, he's excited for his staff, but he seemed pretty even keel and like, hey, yeah, we expect to play like this, and they did.
Do you think that given what's happened each of these first 3 weeks, Bo Brock, how competitive this team has been, that they're going to get the respect now they deserve? We're here laughing at our friends at DMVR and the Denver Broncos giving up 70 points with Vance Joseph. We're laughing at the laugh right in Chicago with the Bears, who are incredibly incompetent. I'm guessing Carolina also lost. Like, is this the pivot point of the year, albeit in week 3, where people are like, all right, we're putting the Cardinals over here. They're not the worst team. They're not tanking. They're not in for Caleb Williams. Like, they're a really competitive team that could be sneaky good when K1 comes back. Have we reached that point yet, or is it premature?
I wish I could say that we have, but the national media is a bit aloof when it comes to Arizona. That's just unfortunate truth right there, especially with how they saw the offseason and how they I guess, conception of the Arizona Cardinals and what their approach was this offseason. It wasn't egregious tanking. It was, rebuilding a roster. It was putting Jonathan Gannon and his staff in year one in a position for success, but beyond that, with their eye more towards the future. But to see how well this team has played and how competitive they've been through 3 weeks, I don't think you can discount that any longer. As much as they're not paying attention, and now that this is like 3 games in a row, that it's been like, hey, this is not just a pushover. Like, the biggest misconception about the Arizona Cardinals is that you show up on Sunday and you win a football game. They've led now, as you pointed out in your tweet earlier, Johnny, each of the 3 last ball games going into the fourth quarter, and now you've got Drew Petzing, you've got Nick Rallis, you've got Jeff Rogers, the special teams coach, all 3 phases making adjustments and making sure that their phase isn't going to be the one that's going to cost them the game. They came away with the dub today, and it was a big one, and they can only build more off of it. And it's fantastic for Arizona Cardinals fans. The first win on Sunday since 2021. We had at home since 2021. October 5th.
Oh, my God.
October 5th. Like, they won on Thursday night. They won on Thursday night last year, but they didn't win on Sunday. It's unbelievable that this poor Red Sea had to endure so much losing in between. They finally got one.
Oh, man. We talked about Michael Wilson and his ascension. He led the team again in receiving yards. Bo, how did he get so wide open on that broken play that happened at the end of the game? Because we're freaking out because Dallas gets the ball back and it's a different kind of game. And that was the solidification of the Cardinals' adjustments, in my opinion, with Petzing. But Michael Wilson wide open, was it just a breakdown in coverage by Dallas? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so Joshua Dobbs, I don't know if this is kind of the gamesmanship, and maybe he wanted to kind of keep that ace up his sleeve on how he was able to just be wide open, not a Dallas defender 20 yards around him. He wouldn't kind of tell us what went into that. He just basically said Michael Wilson ran a good route. But BG, like, you could be the best route runner in the world and you still got a guy a couple of yards within. Like, I mean, it was a play design. It felt like it was a play design, and maybe it was just a mess up on Dallas's behalf as well. But regardless, that started to get things trending in the right direction for Drew Petzing in this offense. If it goes wrong, if it goes poorly, if they're not able to connect on that, I think people are a little upset on a first down play after how the previous 2 possessions had gone and they weren't able to kind of run clock or get points. But that was, they took their chance and they hit on it, and now, they're able to get down there and score the touchdown. It was a huge just changing of the momentum in the second half that seemed to be going all Dallas's way early on. Nice job for Drew Petzing to get back in his bag and pull that one out and get the offense rolling again like they were in the first half. I mean, first half Joshua Dobbs has become borderline elite, Johnny. I mean, when you look at it, like they scored in every possession in the first half today. And then last week, outside of the opening series where Matt Prater missed the field goal, they should have scored on every possession then. So, like, I think they're like 10 for the last 10 as far as Joshua Dobbs in the first half putting this offense in position for points. That's pretty unbelievable.
Do we have Colt McCoy, Damon's first half stats today for through 3 weeks? Do we? No, those aren't available
because unfortunately I forgot to do that.
Gotcha. He's out of football. Okay, we're just being told Colt McCoy is not playing pro football this year. I might have to dig up some old tweets about those who were proclaiming that, I don't know, Josh Dobbs would have been a worse alternative to Colt McCoy in week 1. I'm not going to do that. But again, there were people that were saying Josh Dobbs is a downgrade from Colt McCoy. But I mean, Dobbs in general, BG, I think the coaching is the headline of the season. He is the sub bullet to come in for this team and to play really 2 out of the 3 winning football games for a guy who had no offseason in camp for you. I mean, how hard is that for a quarterback to be the guy and to come in and do that?
That's hard for any position player. I mean, you could be a running back, a receiver, defensive back, whatever you want to call it. It's a tall task to not be here for the offseason, to not be here for camp. You show up a week before the season starts, and it's, hey, you're the starting quarterback. So, I mean, for what he's doing at quarterback, I mean, put his stats on the board. We got predicted, all-pro and MVP quarterbacks right now that are playing for other teams that are throwing for 45 yards in an entire game and losing by 40 points. And now everybody was trying to write off, in week 1 because we didn't have a great game at quarterback. We didn't have a bad game at quarterback against the Commanders. It was just a very conservative play calling sheet and just trying to get through that game. But the last 2 weeks, we've seen that playbook open. We've seen Petzing start to trust Dobbs more. We've seen Dobbs start to trust Petzing more. And it's paying off.
Well, and Bo, if you think about Drew Petzing was public enemy number 1 after week 1 against Washington. I mean, who the hell is this offense? 28 points each of the last 2 weeks against quality opponents that made the postseason last year. And then this running game that's a freight train from hell that has literally come overnight. 222 yards, 180 in the first half. Like, what do you attribute this to?
I mean, and it's a collective effort, right? It's 40 from Joshua Dobbs on the opening drive, the second play of their offensive series. He's just running down the sideline, trying to avoid tacklers, but pretty much a wide open rush lane for him. And then you've got Rondell Moore. He's got a big, was it a 45-yard rush between the tackles?
Yeah.
Rondell Moore, unbelievable. And then, there's the play from Daniel Cortez. Great shot here. And then, of course, you've got James Conner, who was so effective. I know that you were upset he only had 7 carries, but it was for 70 yards in the first half. And then, they were able to lean on him and get into deflate, taking the air out of the football and churning some clock. And it was a collective effort, and they're finding unique ways with not, I know that James Conner's like your bell cow, no doubt about it, but finding ways to supplement James Conner. And that was the biggest question going into the season. And a big tip of the cap. That's tremendous scheme and play calling from Drew Petzing there. And for him to kind of, him and Nick Rallis both to kind of have their moments in the second half after having 2 kind of setbacks or downfalls, collapses in the first 2 games, for them to kind of have a signature moment each is huge and something you can parlay into further success.
I'm being told we have the clip of JG in the post-game presser. Let's go to JG on his thoughts following the Cardinals' upset win against the Dallas Cowboys.
They fought and they played hard, and it's what we've been doing for 2 weeks. I told them right there that the difference of the game was we didn't beat ourselves and we made some plays. Execution was good there. Obviously a lot of things to clean up, but some guys stepped up, made some big-time plays, but we didn't beat ourselves and we made the plays that we needed to make.
Act like you've been there before, subdued and just going about his business. Probably knows he should have had a W each of these first 2 weeks. Not going to take these for granted. Never going to apologize for a win, Bo Brock. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, all business. Because, again, like, they enjoy this today. They're on to San Francisco next week. You can be humbled in this league real quick. And I'm incredibly happy. We talk about it every Monday we meet on our show on PHNX Cardinals. I did not want this team to have it hanging over them of a winless season. I wanted this to be secured early so Kyler wouldn't have to come back and play Superman, for Gannon and everybody else to put away all the nonsense and the garbage about being an underdog in 17 games. But, Bo, I mean, how big is it to get a dub early before K1 comes back? What does that do to the confidence of this team?
I mean, it's through the roof. There's belief in the locker room that they can compete with anybody, and they competed with each of the three teams that they played to start the season. And I know probably the biggest test comes next week. And I mean, I don't know if you could ask for a better time for this win, going on the road and facing arguably the top team in the NFC in the San Francisco 49ers in week 4. I mean, to say, could they shock the world again? I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and just enjoy this, but everybody's bought in. I mean, the entire locker room, coaching staff, front office, everybody's 100% hook, line, and sinker bought in to what's going on. And, it gives them, not only does it kind of just vindicate those people that bought in, so early on, to see it kind of happen this early and validate those people, but it also shuts up all the idiots that were talking about 0-17. All those people like the Mike Florios and the people on nationally syndicated radio saying, 0-17 is a realistic, possibility for this team. Man, do they look stupid after 3 weeks of the season, as this team's been competing with each and every one of the teams in front of them. I mean, it's just a true testament to this coaching staff, this front office, that they're bought into everything that's being preached to them from the top. The GM spot from Ani Ossenfort, who was out there greeting and congratulating every single player and coach, headed back in the locker room post-dub, and then Jonathan Gannon and his whole coaching staff. Just you love to see it, and I think it's absolutely something that can go such a long way for this organization that's been kind of rudderless before this.
BG, how big is it that Kyler Murray can come back now and say, I don't have to worry about this team going winless. I can win as many games as I'm meant to win this year in 2023.
I think it takes a lot of pressure off of Kyler. You see him come back in week 5, week 6, and they're still winless. That's a lot of pressure put on his shoulders. Like, we better win games when he comes back, or then, everybody's on his case of ship him out of here. He's not winning games. Right? The fact that he's got to win, he doesn't have to come back and try to chase the first win. I think it's a lot of pressure off of his shoulders. I think it allows him to come back in, be free, and just play his game and have success.
How poetic is it that Kyzir White got this pick, Bo Brock, to seal this game? I mean, just to be JG's guy, his boy from Philadelphia. Really the only marquee addition that they signed, marquee, in the offseason. JG says, nope, I got to have that guy along with Nick Rallis to run my defense.
Yeah, I mean, and he was asked about that. And, he said that JG basically put his reputation on the line. And there are coaches, Britton, right? There are coaches that believe in you, and they show that trust in you, and you don't want to let them down. And that's the relationship between Kyzir and JG, and Kyzir and Nick Rallis. They went out there, they gave him the 2-year, $12 million deal for him to come. Last year was basically his first time being a full-time player. And they believed him. They put him in that position, for the first time really in his career. And then they said, hey, come do it in Arizona. Be like the only marquee guy that we're going to pick up on the free agent wire and kind of spend a little bit on and prove everybody why we did that and why, they were wrong by not saying, hey, this is a big move for the Cardinals. That everybody's talking about, hey, they're not doing this, this, and that. But they go out there and they get a guy who had 14 tackles, one off, the modern day record for the Arizona Cardinals, and then has the game-sealing pick. Now, we asked Kyzir what was going through his head during that pick, because it seemed like in his mind it was up there forever. Don't drop it, he said. And he couldn't believe that Dak threw it. He couldn't believe Dak threw it that way. I still haven't looked at the replay to see if anybody was in the vicinity, but it felt like he was almost targeting Kyzir on that play. It was so bad.
Yeah, well, they were trying to run the little – it's like he fakes blocking the safety and pops up right there through the middle of the end zone. And I think Dak – if Dak could take that throwback, 100% he would. He'd put a little bit more zip on it. I think he just tried to float it up there, and by the time it got up there, it was just – it hung up there for too long. But I understand what Kyzir White's saying, and just don't drop it. Sometimes that easiest ball in the world to catch is the hardest one to come down with, because you got to think about catching it.
That's right.
So that's the tough part. So I know exactly where he's coming from when he says, just don't drop this ball.
We're going to hear from – Go ahead,
I got to tell you, for the first time in a long time, there were a couple of those plays in this game. And you know, Britton, it had me thinking back to the B8 days, because we haven't seen it where there were that wide open of players, the guys that had opportunities to make plays, where like the only thing standing in their way was themselves in between the ears, right? Like the Michael Wilson play, or, you know, Joshua Dobbs running wide open in open space. Like, we haven't seen that. Like, everything has been like man to man, and so they've made it so tough on themselves for so long. And it seems like defensively, offensively, they put themselves in great opportunities to make big plays, and that is refreshing as a Cardinals fan.
Oh yeah, and that's all you can ask for, is you got to get out of your own way in this league.
Yeah.
If you hurt yourself in this league, nothing goes right for you. But if you can get out and stop making mental mistakes and not doing the dumb stuff, then you can win a lot of football games in this league.